Hello guys, and today I want to introduce you to the sounds of war. This is the video that I wanted to record much because it is not just about the useful tips and important things you have to remember in case you are worried about the potential wars and conflicts expanding to your countries, but it is also a very emotional, very real thing that you first notice when war starts in your country. And one of my very first moments of this deep understanding of war are closely connected with the sounds I've heard one night, still in February. I remember waking up without the sound of air raid alert. It was a very nervous period. And I simply remember waking up and listening to the silence, and then out of nothing, a very weird, very unusual sound. And I don't know, I have never experienced war. I did not like watching military programs, anything. But somehow, immediately you understand this is something evil and something deadly. I could hear a sound of a big tractor, a big car slowly driving the skies. It sounds very unnatural, very wrong, and then an explosion. And you know what was my first thought in this semi-safe city? Because we do not have that many attacks in comparison to the Ukrainian front lines. My very first thought during that dark night was that I actually heard someone's death. I know it may sound like a piece of literature, but in the morning I learned that that was a Russian missile targeted on a small, long-abandoned Ukrainian airbase, and it killed 6 people. Another reminder, Lutsk, my native city, is considered very safe in Ukraine. Such things are rare here, but even if it happens once, it is already a serious tragedy. And I do remember this very ugly, very wrong internal feeling when I understand that I have heard something bad. Do you realize that it was just seconds between me hearing that in my bed in a dark room and these 6 people killed with that missile? Since then, one of my strongest, most personal thoughts that I want to expand in some of my texts maybe is this understanding how wrong Russian drones, Russian missiles, Russian aircraft in the skies. When you look in the skies and you see the smoke, you see this tails that they leave, you realize how wrong that is. Ukrainian skies, unfortunately, have too many scars, same as our stories. But for me, this ugly sound is a symbol of war, is a symbol of Russia. And now I want to introduce you to the sounds that we hear on a daily basis, starting with an air raid alert. They happen during night, they happen during day. During day, it is easier to react, but all of your life is interrupted. But here is how it looks. Greetings from orcs. And it's very often these days. But we must win, and the skies are for sun and clouds, not for missiles. And you know, sometimes they simply interrupt the day. The banks are closed, the schools are closed, the hospitals are closed, and it's just about the waiting. But very often they bring this next evil, deadly sounds of explosions. And the next sound that I want to introduce you to is a combination. And please take your time, do not scroll, and listen attentively. First, you will hear the work of the air defense, then drones, and then an explosion, meaning that this air defense did not stop evil Russian drones. And the sounds of drones are very unusual. They also resemble, this, like some people say they resemble a saw, or this grass choppers, or for example, a scooter. But you can easily hear them almost every night in Kyiv. So here are the sounds. I do hope you will never need this kind of information. And what is also interesting, I was never trained to recognize these sounds, but somehow, even without this previous experience, you always understand this is an air defense working, and this sound does not frighten you. And this is something evil, destroying houses, streets, people's lives. And it is particularly uncomfortable, frightening during the night, because we are all quite vulnerable in that period. And I hope you will forgive my pajama look, but this is just one of these nights in Ukraine interrupted by an air raid alert. Good night, guys. To those who sometimes say that I'm not in Ukraine, I'm very much in Ukraine. Very much. Not just geographically, but also morally, psychologically. And I always will, even after Russia collapses. You have to understand that at night, not all people choose to go to bomb shelters. Sometimes you pray, sometimes you hope this will not affect you. And sometimes you make a mistake. And I think Russians often choose this period of day, night. At dawn, people are super vulnerable. And actually the war began really early in the morning when you physically do not feel good. And that's why lots of your reactions, they actually grow stronger. But what you may find quite unusual and maybe interesting, some people are happy to hear the explosions, these real explosions of destroyed objects, and these are people on the occupied territories. For the book I'm working on, I have interviewed a really good woman who spent a month in Melitopol under occupation. And she shares a lot of very important observations, and I hope you will like the story when it will become available. I think it teaches a lot. But one of her remarks that was also unusual for me is that every time she could hear explosions somewhere around the city, she knew these were Ukrainian armed forces targeting Russian positions. And she said everyone in the city was celebrating. People were happy to hear that, and they knew that Ukrainian army is fighting to liberate their territories. Please do not forget about millions of those who suffer right now and they cannot share their stories. They hide their phones, they hide any connections with Ukraine because they can be executed and tortured for that. They don't have a choice, but they wait for the liberation. And it is the greatest betrayal to speak about these people as, you know, just like territories, percent, or something like that. These are lives. These are people who listen to the explosions and hope that these are Ukrainian soldiers destroying Russian military objects that they love developing around the temporarily occupied territories. So sometimes even such dangerous explosions can bring happiness to those who wait to be liberated. They wait to be liberated. Remember to subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine, and I hope to learn some more useful things, or at least to feel deeper what real war is. I have never believed I will have such experience, and I will share that with you just like a couple of years ago. And now I want to introduce you to another very important and very dangerous sound. It is a sound of a ballistic missile exploding in Kharkiv. Perhaps this is S-300, and you can hear this silence and then this awful sound. Please remember that every such explosion sometimes, more often, means also beautiful, innocent lives lost. So it's not just the ugly sound, it is also what it brings with it. And this sound was recorded by my friend in Kharkiv. You know, Kharkiv is a very brave city, targeted on a daily basis with cabs, with missiles, with drones, but people are very strong and resilient. And this is the sound of an ballistic missile approximately targeting something 10 kilometers away. You know, as I record this video, I can hear birds singing because it's spring in Ukraine. And once again, it is so wrong that we hear and we see so many bad things flying in our skies. We did not deserve that, but the only way to stop it once and forever is to defeat and demilitarize Russia, because as long as they have the instruments of war, they will keep destroying lives and territories, and not just in Ukraine. I think all the sane people understand that, and this kind of negotiations that the American President Donald Trump tries to push, they are not working, and Putin openly humiliates him. You know, in this video, I want to show you a recent story that I have recorded during my visit to Kyiv. You know, I often travel to Kyiv for work, and I recorded it in the center of our capital on the day of the negotiations between the American team and the Russian team in Saudi Arabia. So actually you can hear my emotions on that video, and a very vivid demonstration how no negotiations with Russia are possible and they violate any agreement signed. It's not worth the paper on which it was signed. Negotiations in Saudi Arabia are very effective. Greetings from Kyiv. You can never be fully prepared for a full-scale war because it is not normal for a human being. It's not the experience you can fully adapt. And the sounds of war that I shared with you are meant not to teach you, but to demonstrate you once again how wrong this all is and how much Ukraine needs your support, because we were living our life peacefully, building our country. We are not perfect, but you know, we are normal. We did not interfere into other nations' affairs with missiles, bombs, and this mass destruction that we experience from Russia during the 3 years of the full-scale war and more than a decade of war that started with the annexation of Crimea. I will never forget the sounds of war. It is not normal for me too. When I studied at school, at the university, when I worked, when I walked, when I traveled the world, I could not predict that these sounds will become my daily reality, and that is me living in a semi-safe part of Ukraine. I cannot imagine how many explosions per day people hear in Kharkiv or in Dnipro or in Zaporizhia. But hearing the sounds is not that bad than seeing them or suffering from them. And it always goes together. Ukrainian skies have a lot of scars, but I believe they have way more stars. And these are stars of your support, of your prayers. And I believe that our bravery, our resilience will bring us victory. And the task is to remain united, determined, and to share this truth from Ukraine. Please share this video on your social media platforms. This is important. Subscribe to strengthen the community of this channel. Let me know in the comments below what are the other topics you would like me to discuss in this very personal, very civilian videos. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!